My name's Jay Rigby, front of house for Queens of the Stone Age. So this tour, the whole cycle started about a year ago, about last June. Myself and the monitor engineer Francois, we jumped on in April of this year. The other two engineers stepped away, so we came on. So we kind of inherited a lot of the stuff that was on stage. We've made a couple changes to microphones and stuff to kind of suit us a bit better. The engineer before me was using the SSL as well, and I decided to keep it. I had used it on a tour previously with a band, The War on Drugs, and a very close friend of mine, Bob Strakel, was on that. So when I jumped in to cover him, that was my first time on the desk. Really enjoyed using it, and my other very close friend, Kenny Kaiser, is out with the Killers, has been beating me up to start using this thing for a while, and to get him to stop yelling at me all the time. Yeah, decided to take it out on this and haven't looked back. Absolutely love it. So Queens of the Stone Age, pretty straightforward rock and roll band. Drums, bass, two guitar players, four of the guys sing, a couple keyboards on stage as well. Drums, pretty straightforward, four-piece drum kit. He has some triggers as well for some specific samples for songs. Bass, we take that, DI, and two microphones. He's got two amplifiers on stage. One's a Fender, it's kind of his main tone, really broken up, a bit distorted, and a Guild as well, which is just a really, really broken up, kind of crazy sounding amp that ends up getting mixed in a bit. Three guitar players, Josh, Troy, and Dean. Dean and Josh have stereo rigs, and there's Palmer DIs and mics on both of those. And Troy, over on stage right, he's got three guitar amps. So he's got a main, a boost, and kind of like an effect. Same thing, DI and mic in each one of those. And then some keyboard lines and some vocals. So all pretty straightforward. Those are coming from stage into my SSL stage racks. There's two of them. And then out of that, it comes out of the analog split output over to Francois' stage cage. So we're not utilizing a normal analog splitter, which is really nice. Kind of cleans up the whole thing down there. I came from carrying an analog console for about the past 5 years, and so I still mix in a very analog kind of way. Just really keep it simple, and especially for a band like this, where it's just a straightforward rock and roll band. There's no playback, there's no click, anything like that. So kind of mixing to suit that. Stuff changes every single day. We get the set list 5 minutes before the show, starts. So it's kind of a very throw and go style thing. Josh, our lead singer and main man, he'll just randomly call out song changes. So you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to, so you can't really get yourself too bogged down in any type of automation or anything like that because it just changes so quickly. So from here, from mixing the show, this always stays on the vocals and keyboards. This always stays on my VCAs. And then from here, I'm really just switching between two or three banks, really. I got a drum bank, a bass guitar bank, and samples, and a electric guitar bank. So pretty much only had to press three buttons throughout the whole show to get to anything I want to see. I am using stems on this console for all my effects. Instead of the traditional way of an aux send into a effect return, which is great because it really frees up a lot of processing power on the console. Not that I'm anywhere near maxing this thing out at all, but it was a very interesting way of doing it, so I enjoy that. I've got all the instruments running through stems, acting almost like a traditional group kind of way, so a drum bus, there's a bass bus, there's a guitar bus. And then also what that allows me to do is for broadcast situations, I could send the broadcast truck just 6 stereo stems instead of giving a whole 48 channel fan out. So that's really helpful as well. I personally, I started completely from scratch. I had some multi-track recordings, so I was able to go in to the 8th Day Sound Warehouse and set up the console and build a file. Interestingly enough, my first show I did with these guys was, and the first time I met them, was at a headlining festival for about 50,000 people in Monterrey, Mexico, back in April. And the first time I ever heard the band play through the console, actually playing, was the first song of the set, headlining this festival. So definitely kind of thrown in the deep end, but it turned out great, and it's been a really crazy and wild ride ever since. Yeah, I mean, with these guys, the real challenge is that there's three guitar players. They all, when you listen to a guitar part by itself, it might sound odd, but when you put all three of those guitar parts together, it makes the sound. All the guitar parts are really in this mid-range area, and the band really embraces this mid-rangey kind of gnarly guitar sound. And a lot of people, including myself, would the first thing you do is start pulling that out and try to smooth it out. But the first thing Josh said to me was embrace the mid-range and just really get that out there. And it's really I feel like it's the Queens of the Stone Age kind of signature sound. So trying to have all three of those guitars sit together and not just be peeling your face off is a challenge. And then we have John Theodore on drums, who's just an absolute monster of a drummer. So that makes my job really easy. He's like a freight train. As the show goes on, he just starts hitting harder and harder. So between him and Mikey Shoes, the bass player, it's a really solid rhythm section. So kind of just push that up and just let that sit behind it and drives the whole thing forward, which is nice. And then finally, Josh, as a vocalist, pushes so much air through that vocal mic that, it not to put any to make my job sound easy, but I mean the band really does make it easy by being such great players and giving myself and Francois so much to work with. Well, the guitar is kind of just finding out really who's playing what, and it's a lot of mixing the whole time. There's other bands that I've mixed for where you can kind of sit back and just let it happen. These guys, you were literally pushing and pulling stuff the entire time to get it to sit, before it really just takes off and becomes just a crazy wall of sound coming at you. And the guys are really good about their tones. They really, really put a lot of time and effort into each specific sound to really get it to sound like the record live. So between that with some really great backline guys, it gives me a lot to work with out here, which is nice. But yeah, it's as I said earlier, it's really just riding by the seat of your pants. You never know what's going to be coming at you, so you really just got to be paying attention the entire time, which again lends itself so much to this console that having everything at your fingertips. You can't be going around looking for something, digging through banks of stuff to find what you're looking for, because the time you get to where you're going, the moment's already passed. So that's what I like so much about this, that having everything right in front of me all the time. And the other part of it is just how good the console sounds. For me, it's the first console I've found, a digital console, that sounds as good as a XL4, and that's always what I kind of tended to go back to with the XL4, is just how good it sounded. You push a fader up and it sounds like a kick drum. So that's great, and everything sums to the master bus really well on this. Especially the low mid stuff, where a lot of their tone is, especially like the meat of the guitars, the drums and bass, it all kind of sits down there. And a lot of times you find like it just doesn't really sound like it's a rhythm section of a band playing. All kind of sounds separated. This stuff really comes together really nice in that low mid. So that's why I just felt it was so suited towards this band. There's no trickery happening here. I mean, no waves, no plugins, none of that stuff. I mean, it's a console. I got a couple bits and bobs of outboard over here, but that's just from my time on the XL4. Just so used to having something and just being able to go over and touch it. So we really don't need any of that stuff. You really could just have this console and it would sound amazing. The preamps as well. One of the recording I was using when I was building the show file was from a different brand of digital console. And when I finally got into this, and even the line check with the backline guys that first show in Mexico, just like it was night and day different going through the SSL preamps compared to the other manufacturers. So it's really the whole package. Starting from stage, coming out to here, that it's yeah, it's really second to none. So one interesting thing I'm doing, signal flow wise, and I've done this on the XL4 as well, and I brought it over to this, and utilizing a stem by doing it is for the kick drum and the snare. So I have two kick mics, kick in, kick out, coming into the console, and then I am combining those in a stem, and I'm calling that a kick group, and I'm then compressing and doing my EQ on that group. Um, and on an analog console, I would have to take that group and literally the XLR cable come out of the group back into another channel and do it there. And the reason I was doing that is so I could still send the kick group and the snare group to the drum bus. Uh, if you were just sending it to a group and not bringing it back into the console, you wouldn't be able to get in the drum bus, so it wouldn't get to the broadcast truck or anything like that. But in the SSL, I'm doing that with a stem, since you can send a stem anything, and you can send that stem anywhere. It's just eliminating another processing path. So both kick mics into a stem, and then that kick stem goes into the drum bus or drum stem, and then from there to the master bus. And I'm doing the same thing on the snare as well. So snare top, snare bottom, into a snare stem, and that snare stem into the drum bus. So Troy's guitar rig, stage right, he's got three amplifiers. One is always on, it's his main sound, and he's got the second amplifier and the third amplifier kind of switch back and forth between which one is on. Um, I'm using obviously all three of those channels, but I am using the all pass filter in here to line those channels up. Um, if you're not using without the all pass filter, they sound a bit phasey and it just a bit uncorrelated. But by instead of trying to do a delay or a polarity reverse, anything like that, that all pass filter really lets you dig in and get that guitar to sound really wide and really like it's just one amplifier, even though it's two different amplifiers. So that's something that's great. I'm doing that on all three guitar players as well. The all pass to get both those channels lined up. So that really helps a lot. Um, I think what's so different about this band compared to other bands I've done is just the hanging on by the seat of your pants. You never know what's going to happen. Getting the set list so late, it makes it you kind of really look forward to the show because it could go any direction. And the really cool thing about Josh is that if there's ever like we had a situation where there was like a golden circle kind of thing and like a super VIP in the front and Josh will not stop until every person is into the show. He will make it his mission to make sure everyone is really enjoying it and really gets down with music, and whether that's a song change, to get something like really heavy going. It's an interaction between the band and the audience, and it's a give and a take, and it really, audience interaction plays a lot part of it, and that can kind of really almost decide where the show goes. Depending if the audio's really good, all of a sudden it might be going over here. But you just never know what's gonna happen, which makes it so exciting. Every night is special. Every night's different. Every night, I mean, they performed the best show that they could, and they want the audience to walk away feeling that they saw something really special. And it's so nice to be a part of that. Absolutely, absolutely. The after that show in Mexico, we went in and did a production day in Austin because it was the first day our monitor engineer Francois came in as well, and he did the same thing on his end. He started from scratch, and he had some playback as well, but he wanted to do his own thing and put his own touch on it. And Josh called me into the dressing room, and we sat down and talked for about 45 minutes just about sound and the mid-range conversation about how important they all feel as a band with their relationship with their front of house engineer, that almost it's a another member of the band. So it is also nice working with someone who cares so much about it and that respect as well. of what I'm doing out here and what they're doing on stage and how related it is. So it's really nice.